Welcome everybody to the Clubroom. I'm super excited, delighted, etc. to have Garrick Jones with me today. Just once again, the Clubroom is a part of the Win Again Academy. The Win Again Academy, the mission for the Academy is to help all athletes and even non-athletes transition from really what their sport is to what's next, and really learning all kinds of things along the way, whether it's topics like financial literacy, how much insurance you should have, paying attention to your mental health, your physical health, how you should network, what you should say to people when you meet them, how you should interview and how to prepare for interviews, how you should negotiate offers. There's so many different things that I believe need to be learned that are not being learned. And again, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about being proactive and not reactive. And again, we'll talk about that later. But I want to give you a few words about Garrick before I bring in, because Garrick is, I've known him now for a couple of years, and I first met him when he was really focusing quite a bit on the state's development of football league, the SDFL. And Garrick is such a passionate guy about truly helping, athletes, really be prepared for their life after sport. And this is why we're kindred spirits in that way. But, Garrick spent a few years, 4 years in the NFL, 4 years in the CFL, freezing his butt off even more up there. Also spent a year in the Indoor Football League. He's been the commissioner of the SDFL for maybe, I think it's 9 or 10 years now, is the treasurer of the NFLPA in a Houston chapter, and is also the president of Huddle Foundation of Houston. So there's probably a lot more things I didn't mention, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But do me a favor, and everybody sort of clap your chat hands. I don't even know what I mean by that. But thanks so much for coming in, and I'm going to bring in Mr. Jones right now. Here we go. Garrick, go ahead and click that accept button and come on in. And by the way, his TV is so much better. His camera is so much better than mine. I'm really amazed by that. Look at this thing. Oh my God.
Mark, how are you, brother?
I'm fantastic, but I always feel like I don't know, this is like a pre-recorded interview or something. It looks so fancy. Anyway, but thank you so much for being here. I love doing this. Obviously you've got a big fan following out there. People not only forget the fans of when you were playing and so forth, but also really more importantly, fans of what you're doing now, what you're trying to do. And I think that, what I want to do today is really dig a little bit deeper into what you're trying to do now and where you're hoping things will go in the next few weeks and couple months and so forth, but also almost put you on the spot a little bit about what you bring to the table, and almost kind of as if I'm interviewing you for the job, although I won't be maybe as brutal or something like that or something. But first off, tell me a little bit about what is your goal right now? What are you trying to do? What are you hoping to do going forward?
Well, for me, excuse me, in regards to a goal, everything that I do, I want it to be advantageous for all parties involved. And my thing is being able to bridge as many gaps as possible, because there's so much of a disconnect all over the world. And we understand that sports, bridges a lot of those gaps, but you have to have the right people that are able to connect with everybody. And that's always been my deal. Just giving everybody myself and being as authentic and as genuine as possible in order to make sure that all parties involved are benefiting from what we're doing. And that's really what my thing has always been, kind of the segue off what you said, in the intro. I want to see people in better places and better positions than when they got here. And that's always been my thing. I've always been like that. My mom can tell you that I've always looked out for everybody else before I looked out for myself. But I understood everything that I've done, to this point, has been for a reason. And to be able to give back and just set things up to where, when I'm done, these are things that not only will my children's children be able to benefit from, but everybody that's associated with us. So, I'm just trying to change the world from my corner of it, and just be as real and authentic as possible, and just make sure that, these are the things that we're going to be doing anyway, whether it be online, whether it be playing sports, or whatever, networking for business. You always want to be able to give people more. And be a value add, if you can do that. And that's been my MO.
All right. So are you Are you running for office?
I'm sorry. Can you say that
Are
again?
you running for office? That was a great political response. Like that was,
Yeah, man.
you
Hey,
probably
I
danced
think
around
I'm
it.
thinking after I'm done with this whole NFL deal again, I think I may run for office too, man. So I
Ooh,
got a few things up my sleeve,
wow.
man.
All
We
right.
gonna make it happen, brother. We're gonna make it happen.
Should I call you Governor Jones or something like that, or President Jones? All right.
I'm not sure, man. We'll get it figured out. I tell you what, after we get into the NFL and do what we need to do,
Cool.
um, I have a couple more things on my bucket list I'm gonna do. So I think running for office might be one of them too. So.
That's pretty cool. So, but do me a favor, give me an idea, and this is going to be a question I'm asking your opinion. I don't care about anybody else's opinion, just yours. What do you think are some of the critical qualifications? Like, what does someone really need to have if they wanted to become a general manager in the NFL, in your opinion?
Man, they have to be a leader. Number one, they have to be able to bring all these different factions together and get them, working as one. It's just like being a quarterback on the field. That quarterback has to be the one that calms everybody's heartbeat and speeds people up when they need to be sped up to where, we're all, operating as one. And it's the same thing with a general manager. You got a lot of people that, harp on he needs to be a great talent evaluator, or he needs to be a numbers guy, or he needs to be all about the salary cap and all those different things. And from my travels and from, the things that I've done, in regards to all the teams that I've been on and been around, you would have guys that just really focused on one deal, and they were very good, very great in in those things, but they were one dimensional. And when it came down to being able to articulate what you needed or what they needed, they couldn't do it, So it's one of those situations where you have to be the complete package, because once you get a chance to get to a general manager position, you're not just doing the scouting, or you're not just doing the salary cap. You're bringing people in that are going to be authoritative figures in what they do. And you got to be able to delegate and put a team together that will be able to reflect, what it is that you're about. And you have to have that. If you don't have that, you're not going to really have the respect of the players, the coaches, and definitely not the fans. So it's pretty rough, man. It's pretty rough. You got to be cut from a different cloth, and I know what cloth I'm cut from, and that's one of the things, that I've always tried to bring to the table when it came down to business, when it came down to being on that field or in the boardroom. I'm in my space, I'm in my environment, and I'm good. And that's kind of one of the things that I looked at and said, when it came down to being a GM, I think I can do it, and this. If you put me in a room with a lot of different guys who have been in the NFL for a number of years, I'll come out the room the guy, and that's what I'm all about.
So, because it's interesting, I think that the GM position is so different with the different teams, right? Because there's different people that exist in power, sort of a thing. Like you have the owners that are the owners. And they each have their different, personalities, but also control, right? And then there's other people that say, look, GM, you've got all the control, go for it, and that sort of thing. But what do you think are sort of the top? I mean, you mentioned a bunch there, but in your opinion, what do you think are the top two or three true responsibilities of the GM? I mean, you said earlier, kind of maintaining the peace, or almost being like the United Nations kind of a thing. But
Right.
is it more talent assessment? Is it more sort of negotiating contracts or finding? Is it
Mm-hmm.
what do you think it is?
It's all that, man. You got to be able to make the hard decisions, and you have to be able to stand in front of the fire squad, when things don't go as you thought they may have. A lot of people don't have that, a lot of people don't have that moxie about them. You kind of go into, my general manager push in the grassroots campaign that I put together. I put myself in front of all these fans. I mean, scrutiny every day, but I already knew, what I was made of and the things I've had to do. And when those things happen, you get the opportunity to bring those people into your circle. You would have people that would, be headhunting every day, like, what qualifies you? And then I'm giving them facts. Like, okay, these are the things that you can go check out on me right now. And by the time they were done, I've challenged them to not just take what I'm giving them, in a comment section, but really go do your due diligence on your own. And then when you come back, you want to be a part of the team. So I'm inspiring them. And those were the things that I was showing all these different fans. So by the time I was done dealing with those guys that really didn't like me, I got guys on speed dial now. And on top of that, I would come back with 30 or 40 more people that wanted to be a part of the movement. and that's their social proof. A lot of people don't have that about themselves. You know, they'll never really put themselves out there. So I think with a general manager, he's going to be more in the limelight. He or she is going to be more in the limelight, and they have to be able to, you know, answer tough questions and make tough decisions and be able to stand their ground when they are, you know, adamant about what the deal is. You know, in order to build a team, you have to build a house. So you have to have your foundation. You have to have your different steps and understand what your team has. And you got to be able to evaluate the talent from top to bottom. And that's the people in the building, as well as the men and women that are on the field. And then the fans that you kind of bring into it, you got to be able to assess them as well. So you got to be that person. You know, you got to be the one that's there and making it happen. And people will bring things to you. And you just got to, you know, take that information in and make the tough decisions.
Just tough decisions. You know, how do you actually
Mhm.
remove emotion from some of those decisions? Because look, a GM has to, yeah, the hiring is the fun part, but the firing is the
Right,
tough part. And not just firing staff, but also letting players go. And especially in football,
right,
it's not, you know, letting a couple players, it's
yeah,
dozens, right? So
right.
how do you manage the and separate the emotion out of it?
Well, for me, it's always been about the game of football. So if I had a bad play, I couldn't let that go into the next play. So I would always have to have a short memory. So I'd always have to really just be even keel. I was never too high, never too low. And by doing that, you know, I've trained myself to really look at things from a logical standpoint, because 9 times out of 10, if you're making emotional decisions, they're going to be wrong. That's just what it is. And it's kind of like what I was talking about earlier, you know, before we started, you know, common sense isn't so common a lot of times. So when it comes down to making those decisions and guys being, you know, hired and fired, I mean, I've been cut from every team that I played with, I think, at some point. You know what I'm saying? So those are things that you learn, and you learn that, you know, it's on to the next. You know, let's just take the Texans situation. You know, everybody knew that I was really focusing on the Texas scenario, but everything that I talked about and everything that I've done can very well go to another team when it comes down to just everything that we have set up and what we're doing. So it's not hard to transfer everything that I've talked about. So when it came to the scenario of the Texans hiring somebody else, you know, people were down. You know, people were, you know, texting me, emailing me. You know, I almost 4,000 different messages, right? And I would have to cheer them up. Like, no, it's okay, because there are 31 other teams. And that's the mindset that you have to have. So when it comes down to, you know, what goes on in the NFL, it's a performance-based business, and anything business-wise is performance-based business. So people tend to fire themselves if they're not performing up to that standard or that level that you set for them, and myself included. So it's about accountability. If I'm not doing what I need to do, I need you to check me, and vice versa, because that's what needs to happen, because it's supposed to be a family. So that's how it works, man. It's not hard, man. The emotions and logic, you just have to be able to have a short memory. You know, you can get bent out of shape for a second, but not too long, because we got work to do.
Well,
And that's just what that's
it's
what it is.
interesting you say that, because I've seen some people that really get so worried about getting rid of somebody and firing somebody or letting them go. And at the end of the day, they forget sometimes how quickly they bounce back. They worry so
Right,
much about the other person. Oh, this is life altering. They're going to be, well, yeah, until they bounce back. So, you know, that's something to
right,
remember. Number one. Number two is, you know, I think that what you're doing, and you're right, it was the Texans decision was disappointing, but I think what you're going to remember is that, number one, you've got all these people that supported you, which is really absolutely incredible. But I think
right,
that you know, you're just continuing to deposit money in the karma bank, right? And or deposit whatever karma in the karma
right,
bank, whatever, you know, whatever it is. And I think that you're going to find that the more and more conversations you have with people, the people that get to know you, they're going to see that you're just the kind of guy that they want at the helm. And it's just a question of, it's all just, you know, the next person you talk to could be that person. You know,
right,
it's the way it is with everything, with networking, with just meeting people anywhere. It's just one conversation after the next. That's why I always really encourage people, especially like an event like this, to keep talking to people and just,
right.
you know, sort of don't be afraid to ask too. But all right, so quick little, before I go on actually much further, I want to mention to people that on your screen over there on the right side, it says chat and participants and Q&A. So the Q&A part, please feel free to throw a question in there if you've got one for Garrick or myself, and What I will do is, if you want, I can bring you into the screen here and you can ask Garrick directly. If you don't want, that's fine too. But if you do want that, say yes, you'd like to be brought in and ask your question, but feel free to put them in there. So please do that. And then the chat away all you want. And then the participants, you can connect with people while we're talking or afterwards. But anyway, so the next question I've got is, you know, right now, this is the exciting part of the NFL season. I mean, this is great stuff. I mean, we've seen some really incredible playoff games already. I think we've got a great slate coming up this weekend. But you know, COVID really, I mean, look, it's had such an incredible impact on everybody, and not necessarily positively at all. But how do you think the NFL has handled all of this, the COVID stuff, you know, and playing the season and the games?
I think that they've done a pretty good job with continuing the season, you know, and trying to keep everybody safe, the different protocols, all those different things. You know, you never are truly ready for a pandemic like this, even though you may, you know, do the fire drills or the tornado drills in school until you really have a tornado there. You know, that's kind of the deal. But I think they've done pretty well in rescheduling games and just staying on, you know, on the time schedules and those types of things in order to, you know, have the Super Bowl and you know, and all these different games, which has really been good. I think sports has really helped, you know, people kind of escape the reality of being stuck in home and not being able to do a lot of the things that we take for granted. You know, there's a lot of people that were taking just being able to move around for granted, and you got a chance to see where they were mentally when they no longer had that. And for these leagues to be able to continue on, I think it's been a really good thing. I think for sports in general with COVID, I think it's a great reset button. You know, if you know, look at it from another perspective, it's really put everybody on the level playing field. You know, when it comes down to salary caps, when it comes down to contract negotiations, when you bring guys in, they understand that, you know, going into 2021, you know, the money's not there like it once was, but it'll come back. So these are the things that we need from each other in order to give you what you want, which is a long-term deal, and give us what we're looking for, which is a Super Bowl in which we all benefit from it and we all eat from it forever. So I think it's been a different type of season. You know, it's been guys that have been shorthanded or teams that have been shorthanded, but they've done a really good job of it. You know, and it's one of those things where, as we learn more about what's going on, we'll be able to kind of get back to some normalcy. I don't know if we'll ever be back completely normal, like what we would call normal, but it'll get a lot better. I think it'll get better.
Well, look, and I kind of think it's an amazing miracle that we are somehow able to get through the season like this, you know, with all these games played.
Right.
And it was honestly, aside from, I don't want to give my opinion on the Eagles completely rolling over against the Redskins in that last game, because I'd be giving up my opinion, which I wouldn't want to ever give. But it was really weak what they did. But anyway, and as a Giants fan, I'm saying that. But anyway, but with all that said, you know, give me just maybe one or two quick things that you would like to see changed in the NFL. Like, do you have some ideas of things that you think either the league could evolve into or eliminate or change? What are some of the things that you think you'd like to see?
Just from being a former player, you know, I would like to see some more proactive programs when it comes down to financial literacy, when it comes down to business, when it comes down to just being a productive member of society when you're done playing, because you got to understand the athletes that are there are the top 1%. So these guys were the guys that, you know, junior high, they were the best athletes. Going into high school, they were the best athletes. Going into college, they were the cream of the crop. And when you have that type of athlete, you know, a lot of times we're pushed through the system. So it's unfortunate because you now have a young man that still has been in some way, shape, form, or fashion handicapped when it comes down to growth and maturity. And now you have all of this money that, you know, you've earned, you know, just from whatever you've done. But when you get it, you're not quite ready for it. I mean, I know people that are 40, 50 years old that aren't ready for that type of money. So you give this to a kid, you know, 18, 19 years old. And they're expected to know what to do with that and not really have the opportunity to learn and continue to grow. Because when you get to the league, it's a job. It's X's and O's, and it's holding on to your job. Because the NFL is the best temporary job you ever have. I have yet to see anybody leave on their own terms. So it's one of those deals. So by the time you're done, you're 26, 27, you know, and now you got to kind of figure out how to navigate those things. And everybody around you really hadn't been ready or been exposed to a lot of different things and educated on that. So I would think, you know, just the education of the people around a lot of these athletes, as well as the athletes themselves in some way, shape, form, or fashion, and just intentional communication and teaching everybody how to communicate with each other. So there's more of a connection in the building. So when you're done, you still have friendships outside of the locker room. You know, guys that played the game, you know, from a locker room standpoint, you stay connected with those guys forever, but you don't really stay connected with, you know, payroll. You don't really stay connected with PR and, you know, everything else that goes on in there when everybody's essentially a team. So we got to figure out how to bridge that gap. And I got some good ideas, man.
I guess we'll have to send $9.95 plus tax to your local thing for those ideas. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, look, I'm going to invite, yeah, or we can stay a lot later on here. Listen, I'm going to start bringing in some of the folks here to ask their questions. And the first one I'm going to bring in is Nick Mershon. Nick, why don't you jump on in and ask your question, if you could?
Hey, Garrick, Nick Mershon. Met Mark in 2019 through Tuck's Next Step program. He was helping vets and athletes there. But my question is, what would somebody without a sports in or connection do to get into the industry, right? So, and I understand the networking piece, doing things like this, but what specifically when jobs are, you know, you have 1,000 applicants for this one job, how does Nick, Navy submarine guy, set himself apart from somebody who just got out of school that's looking for the same internship?
Gotcha. To answer that question, you have to put yourself in the same framework. It's like what we talk to our athletes about. A lot of our guys are 2, 3, maybe 4 years removed from school, and there's always a new crop every year. So you have to be able to put yourself in that framework where, you know, the people that are hiring, especially in the league or in the sports position, see the value that you bring to the table. It's kind of like myself. You know, I had every team that I play for wanted me to come scout and take this journey with them for 10, 15, 20 years. And then eventually I'd probably have a 50-50 shot at being a general manager. When I looked at it and said, nah, that's not going to work for me, because I don't want to put myself in a box working for, you know, one team and just their athletes when I can work with all of these athletes and do it from a global standpoint. So the fact that you've lived life and you've done things, that adds to the veteran type of mentality that these teams are looking for. They want people to be able to come in and not have to have their hands held, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
And that's really what it's about. Being able to take what you've done and apply it to what they're seeing, whether it be the conversation, you know, whether it be, you know, the perseverance of just reaching out, self-starter, you know, those types of deals. That's what needs to be seen when it comes down to it. So the networking aspect of it is huge. You know, finding different programs that you can get into, just like this year with the pandemic. You know, you had all of these different classes that were offered online for free. And that's all I did the entire time. I was getting certified and certifications. I finished some degree programs. I mean, I think I got like 12 or 13 different situations set up. So
Nice.
I would be able to walk into an office and say, here's what I've done right now during the pandemic when everybody has been just out of it mentally. You know that I'm mentally tough. So I wanted to be able to provide that social proof. So that's basically what this thing is, man. And that's what it's about, because you can have somebody that's coming out of school and they may not have what you have when it comes down to just life, you know, going through different things and being able to bounce back. So it's just really focusing on, you know, the things that you may think is a weakness. That's really a strength. And that's what you just have to build up and continue to push on with that. So it's a lot of different things that are out there. So just tap into them, man, and make them a part of your body of work, and it'll happen for you, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Great question. Thanks, Nick. We'll see you in a bit.
I appreciate it, man.
Well stated. Now I'm going to bring in Jennifer now, and I think she'd like to jump in and ask a quick question about a really interesting aspect of things here. Come on in, Jennifer.
Garrick.
There you go.
So I wanted to thank you for inviting me on LinkedIn. I thought this was pretty cool, and it is. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I am bombarding you with a couple of questions, and I'm just curious to see, as somebody who's been in the NFL, because I know that everybody's walk of life, you have to take the hits along the way. You can't
Right.
get where you are, especially in that, I mean, very few people are fortunate enough not to have to really endure in order to succeed.
Right.
So I have to put my glasses on.
This family, you good.
These days. Okay. So what advice would you give in terms of perseverance when getting knocked down? And what have your losses taught you? That's one of them.
Okay. When it comes down to perseverance, the fact that I did not have a senior season of school, and I made it to the NFL when less than 1% of all athletes make it, taught me a legitimate lesson in perseverance, in believing in myself, and having a belief in the aspect of I had a purpose. A lot of people go through life and they don't really understand what their purpose is until maybe it's too late or they're later in life. For me, I was able to figure that out early on, and I knew that everything that I was doing was going to contribute to what I'm doing now, and would be almost like a lesson plan as if I'm a teacher. The advice I would give would be, you have to go through life and experience as much as possible. I don't know if you are a foodie or anything, or you're really big into food, but if you look at gumbo, it's a hodgepodge of everything. And I look at everything that happens to you as seasoning. So if you haven't gone through anything, your gumbo is going to be real bland, or your food is going to be bland. So everything, in as far as with your life experiences and those types of things, those are your seasonings that you can put into your pot or put into your food. So it's all about perspective with me. I try to look at everything from an optimistic eye and an optimistic lens, because once I do that, I get an opportunity to really see it for what it's worth. So I get the sky view instead of just being right there on painting the picture. And that really has helped me when it comes down to making decisions, just trying to, exercise that logic and emotions and things that we talked about earlier. But it's, there are no losses. It's just lessons. It may be cliche. A lot of people say that, but if you really slow down and look at it for what it's worth, everything is that. Everything's a lesson. I learned lessons from my children, and it's really cool because, as a parent, you want to be the one that's right, but a lot of things they may say or things they may do will show you, man, it's one of those things. So I think for me, and like I say, when it comes down to just being able to relate mind state, it's all about removing yourself from that moment and taking a deep breath and allowing yourself to see everything for what it's worth, and not just being in that moment and just living with those emotions and those types of things. So hopefully that answers the first question.
Yeah, it did. I'm just curious where the second question went. It disappeared. I'm like,
Uh-oh.
what?
Uh-oh.
Let's see.
Sure, was a good one. We can't get it back. It's gone into the internet space, the black hole.
No, black hole.
Yeah. But anyway, well, look, but thanks for that first question, Jennifer. That was fantastic.
Absolutely.
And so I guess thanks again. And so, following up on that, I think what people always like to see is, look, it's funny because on one hand, we see when there's football being played or baseball or any of the sports, it's a 50% thing, right? Half the teams win, half to lose. It's not. So there's always going to be the person that's losing versus the person that's winning. And I think that it's, I'm sure you've read and heard that psychologically, we tend to dread a loss more than we're happy with a gain. If you told someone, if they found $100 on the floor, they'd be really excited. But if they lost $100, they'd be really pissed off. And
Right.
it's just the way we are about loss versus gain. So I think that's a lot of times what happens when people are asking questions about loss because it's, that's what people want to know. Like, I think what's really critical in any sort of anything is that you have as much as possible strong skin. And what I mean by that is Teflon, it's the highs and lows. One of the quotes you mentioned when we had our podcast was talking about roller coasters and how you said, and I remember this was really good, where you said the roller coaster, you start and you end at the same height. There's highs and there's lows, and you've got to balance it off, right? What would you say to that?
No, that's the truth, man. Anytime you have losses, there's a lesson in it, and those are the things that you gotta get excited about failure sometimes, because that means you're trying. If you're not failing at something, you're not trying, and it's about, really looking at it for what it's worth. And a lot of people don't do that because they don't feel like they can handle rejection or they can't handle adversity. And they never really have pushed themselves. Once you get a chance to really get into something and it pushes you to a limit that you've never been, now you're being uncomfortable. So you're growing. I tell people all the time, man, I have yet to go to a gym and I'm not uncomfortable. I'm not sweating. I'm not getting something out of it, because if you're not there and you're not uncomfortable and sweating and straining, you're basically in the way. You're holding up machines, and we need those machines because we're working out.
Right.
So you just kind of got to look at it like that, man. This isn't hard, man. This isn't rocket science, man. This is life, and we tend to make things harder than what they should be, unfortunately.
Oh, man, spot on. It's interesting, and a piggyback to that a little bit is that I find that people they look at other people as if they're like a massive expert way up high here. Like I look at like Jerry Jones. Oh my God, he's like that. No, these are guys that still, and men and women who put on their pants the same way. They drink their coffee the same way. They just happen to be in an opportunity that we aren't in, but we can be in. So, I think that's something that's really important to remember. I'm going to invite Mr. Whitethorpe in. He's got a fantastic question for you. I like this one. So feel free to come on in.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Thank you, Mark.
What's going on, man?
Yeah.
How you guys doing?
Hey, before you answer the question, man, I love that poster of 42 in the back.
Thank you.
Robinson.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you really quickly, I turned 42 in December. And at midnight, when I turned 42, the movie was on. Oh. So it was kind of one of those deals where I said, you know what? Okay, I get it. Yeah. So cool. My bad, man.
You're here.
Yeah, definitely. And again, thank you for everything that you've been saying. It's definitely helping me. I'm a recent graduate of Hampton University. And then right now I'm interning with the New York Islanders. So hearing this is kind of helping me. And my dream job is actually to become a GM. So thank you for that. But my question was based off the Deshaun Watson situation going on right now, knowing that you wanted to become the GM of the Texans. So basically with, Deshaun Watson stating his frustration, how would you have dealt with the situation as the GM of the Texans?
Well, it would have never got to that, and how it would have never got to that is it would have been complete transparency, and it would have been a foundation of trust. You have to involve your players. I don't know where they get this thing of, the players play the game and, we make the decisions and all those things like that. Automatically, there's a disconnect. Everybody has to be comfortable enough to be able to be, stellar athletes or stellar businessmen and women. You want to put everybody in a position to win. And that's not happening with the Texan organization right now. So it would have never got to that. But what I looked at, and if I was in the position where they hired me instead of Nick Caserio, I would have been on the horn with Deshaun and I would have let him know, this is the direction that we're headed. I'm not going to take much of your time because I know you're on vacation, but I need you to understand that. So when you get back, you have an understanding of where we're going. And it's one of those things where, with the grassroots campaign, with me putting in the work and being a former player, there's a level of respect there. So in order to get respect, you got to give it. And I don't think a lot of respect is happening right now in the organization when it comes down to, the searches that they had going on, all those different things. They've alienated a lot of people, a lot of fans, a lot of former players and current players So you have to have somebody that is able to bridge that gap in those positions, from those authoritative positions, to be able to reassure the fans that we're here for you, or reassure the players that we're here for you. And a lot of their actions aren't describing that, and it's not showing that to the players right now. So for me, man, and looking at the Texans organization right now, it's a lot of disenchantment. There's a lot of dismay. There's a lot of fires across the board. And for me to be a former player there, and all the other former players who, had blood, sweat, and tears, and helped build that foundation, we feel like it's a slap in the face right now. And you never want to have your fans and former players and current players in that position, because you paint yourself in a corner. And unfortunately, that's what they've done, and they got to make it right. So I get it. I understand, the level of frustration, because he's out there giving his all, and all he wants to do is to continue being a champion. That's all he knows. And that's what he's going to give you each and every time he's on the field. Mm-hmm. So you have to match that. It's a marriage. Like, I'm going to work just as hard for you off the field as you're working for us on the field. Yeah. And that's kind of how my relationship was with my agent. When I was playing, that was the first conversation. I'm like, are you willing to outwork me? And he was like, yeah. So it was a Jerry Maguire situation. He's right there, spotting me, and he has a suit coat on and tie. And I knew it was real, because, I had to match that. So that's what you got to have in those positions, man. So if you're going to be a GM, you got to outwork everybody, because they got to catch up to you, and that's really what I'm trying to bring to the table for any organization. You want somebody like me to run your team, I promise you. And that's exactly what you got to bring to the table, man.
Yeah, it seems like the Texans, they missed out on a good one. So definitely thank you.
Man, no problem, bro. If I get an opportunity to go somewhere, I'll take full advantage of what they have going on over there, because I took an entire year to understand and study their salary cap. So I know what they need. And like I said, that Jacksonville situation looks good. So he would be, wherever I would be, he'd come. I figured out how to make that happen. So, but we'll see how it goes, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks so much that was a great question. Thanks so much. That was great. And it's interesting because number one, I think Deshaun should just leave Houston, go to the Jets. I mean, not that I'm suggesting the Jets need another quarterback, but
right.
They need something. But I guess if you switch gears to Jacksonville, get rid of that first pick. You won't really need it. Just toss it aside and send that to the Jets.
There
Go
you
to
go.
the Giants. Actually, I'd rather you go to the Giants. Anyway, so someone had it. But speaking of things like draft and so forth, one of the questions that someone put in there was, how difficult is it to not only run a draft? I mean, as a GM, but as part of that thing, how do you get a consensus? Like, is it as simple as, okay, how many for, how many against, or is it 8 people for, 1 person against, but the one against is the GM, and therefore they get the final say? I mean, what usually happens in that draft preparation?
Well, the scouts and the organizations that I've been a part of, and even with how I would run it, you're going to know clearly and concisely what our objective is for that draft. They will have evaluated the talent enough to know if they are going to meet our criteria or not. When you bring a particular athlete to the table and say, hey, he's the best thing since sliced bread, everybody in the room is going to evaluate that talent. And if everybody in the room has we got an average of this guy, like he's the one, he then goes on the board, because you want to be able to take the fan emotion out of it, because you like this guy, as opposed to just the logical aspect of it. And he's going to be good for our team that's on and out the field. So you want to do it like that, because in order to have the best talent, everybody has to lay eyes on them. And then what would happen is, at the end of it, I'd sit down and I'd say, okay, I'm going to look at him from a player standpoint. Can I look in his eyes and tell if he's the one? If he's going to be able to go out here and be mentally tough and be durable and do all these different things that we're asking of him. And then from a business standpoint, or even I'll say a big brother, I'm going to look at him and say, all right, off the field, can we trust him? Would he be able to handle the limelight? I'm going to make sure that we go through all these different instances before we pull the trigger, and make sure that they fit the criteria of what it is that we're looking at doing in the direction that we're looking at going. Because if it's not championship talk, we're wasting time. We're here to win Super Bowls. And that's ultimately what the situation is. Make sure that our athletes are better people when they leave, win these Super Bowls, and make sure that the fans are happy. That's it.
Bottom line. I mean, and I think a lot of times people
Bottom line.
forget that, right? The bottom line is the bottom line, but the bottom line becomes the bottom line when the talent is there and when the talent is developed and succeeds and so forth. All right, we're going to jump in with one more question. I'm going to bring Matt in, and Matt has a pretty good question too. I like this one. So here we go, Matt. Come on in. It's excitement and waiting. It's a nervous wait. There we go.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Jones? Nice to meet you. I'm Matt Anzio from VFP.Football. I help some of the smaller school guys and the underdogs.
Okay.
How do you feel about the players from the 2020 class that would have been in rookie minicamp this year, getting an opportunity to get into the 2021 rookie minicamp this year, or minicamp?
Well, I think that with the adjustments that they made, I think it'll be good. You got to understand that each one of these teams are going to come in with 90 guys, and then they got to whittle that down to 53 men. So now you're going to take, some of that preseason off the front end and add that on the back end now. So the chances for development right now are really hard. What I would say for these guys that are coming from these smaller schools and getting a chance to get in, reps are going to be slim, right? But the actual experience of being around different players, different veterans, they're going to have to really be intentional about every day, every second that they're there, and not take anything for granted, because that's going to add to, their understanding of what they need to do in order to get there and be able to stay. It's kind of like myself, I got an opportunity to be around some quality veterans, some Hall of Famers. And I was a sponge, because I knew that, there was going to be a day where I would be in a position to do different things. And even if I wasn't, I was going to be able to take that to another team and be able to show them my value. So it's all about value adds, when it comes down to smaller schools, because we got overlooked. I'm from Arkansas State.
Yeah.
We were independent. So we would play. When I played, man, we played LSU at Death Valley. Then we went between the hedges in Georgia 2 weeks later. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those situations, where I was able to have personal victories, but, team-wise, we were homecoming for everybody for an entire year. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to take those instances and really, really, really take what you're getting, take the coaching, being around those people that have been there, done that, and now that's a part of your resume, and that's something that anybody can't take away from you. Absolutely. And they have to be able to apply that to their body of work, just like if they were going to apply for a job. These are the people that I have been around that have mentored me, and we had mentee relationships, and this is a part of my resume now. So they just got to be able to go in there and just do what they need to do, and understanding this is a business, man, and you're there for a reason,
Yeah. I mean, some of these guys did have draft grades on them. It's just with the way things were, they fell through the cracks, unfortunately, but they're gung-ho to get in there, and they're working really hard. So I'm really going to keep pushing for them, Mr. Jones.
No, you just keep pushing them. And I would tell them, just from my experiences, everything that I had to do, whether it be, I was running 40s in hotel hallways. I was working out in mud. The scouts were working me out at 2, 3 in the morning, all those crazy things while I was on the road, where I had to travel from Little Rock all the way to LA, and from LA back to Mobile, Alabama to the Senior Bowl. It's a hustle. It's a grind, they got to put in the work, because you want to be able to show a team that you add value, and there's a reason why they can invest in you. So it has to be something that differentiates you from everybody else. Even though there's so many different athletes that are trying to get there, less than 1% of all athletes across the world make it. But 47 to 48% of that 1% is the free agent guys. So it's the blue collar guys are the ones that make it go, man.
Yeah, we see it at the end of the year.
Right.
We had to call on all of them when the guys got injured, and they came through, for a lot of these teams.
That's what it's about, Doc. So now continue to just stay in their ears, man, and it'll happen. It'll happen, and if it doesn't, the aspect of being around the different guys, if they do get a chance to get to camp, that adds to what you want to do if you want to stay involved with the sport, from a front office aspect, scouting, all those different things. And that's something they can't take from you. You know what I'm saying?
Great question, Matt. Hey, listen, I really appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
man.
Yeah. All right.
Appreciate you,
That
brother.
was really good. And look, I'm going to try to just jump in with one more question, and then we're going to go back to the tables in a minute. But these have been, look, I appreciate these questions because they've obviously been able to sort of really pull from you your expertise, man. I love it. So I'm going to bring in Michael. He's going to ask one more question. Come on in, Mike. Michael. All right, you're on.
Mike, what's up, man?
Mark, thank you, Garrick. Appreciate the time. And what are some of the most important things that you took from your years as a player and into your everyday business and professional practices?
Teamwork. I can't do any of this by myself, right? If I was a coach, if I was running the ball, blocking, throwing the ball, I was a water boy, and I was tackling people, we go 0-16, 0-17 every year. You know, so you have to be able to rely on people. And I know what a lot of people is about control, you know, and a lot of people can't give up that control. But once you're in a teamwork environment, you learn to rely on people because you guys have a singular purpose. And that's been one of the biggest things for me. I think one of the things that I've really taken and it's helped me excel in business because I can bring people to the table and I can delegate, you know, delegation is big. Being able to, you know, hire the right people and them get the job done. And there's a system of belief there because once you believe in the people that you're around and they sharpen you and hold you accountable, those are some of the things that I've learned from sports because I want you to be able to hold me accountable to get my job done. And I have to be able to do the same thing for you. And we have to have thick enough skin to where we understand that the main thing is the main thing. And this ain't nothing personal. This is us working together. And that's what really has set me apart, you know, from a lot of other people when it came down to business. I understand the dynamic of teamwork. You know, I've been able to really understand how to communicate with people. And that's something that I've worked on, you know, daily, just learning how to talk to people, you know, how to be intentional with, you know, with them and what their personalities are, you know, whether it be diversity and inclusion, you know, personality indicated situations. All those different things. You have to have those in your arsenal and in your tool belt to be able to leave people with their dignity after they talk to you. So it's about respect, man. You know, and my thing is, I want you to be able to get a job done and you feel like you were the reason why it got done. Because if you're feeling like that and everybody else is feeling like that, we got a team of people who are leaders, you know, and that's what this thing is all about.
Great question. Thanks so much. All right.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you. And so a couple of quick things because I want to jump back to the tables for a couple of minutes. But first of all, what is the best way that people can reach you, Garrick, directly? And you know.
Oh yeah. Man, I'm not hard to find realistically. You know, I'm all over online. IG is officially Garrick Jones. You got Twitter, which is Commissioner GJ. The same thing with LinkedIn is Commissioner GJ. And I mean, you can pretty much just put in, you know, any search bar that you or search engine that you use, and you'll be able to find me doing something and just kind of making some noise, you know, here and there, man. So I'm not hard to find.
That's great. And so quick question, based on what you've seen so far, what do you think of this club room? What do you think about it?
I mean, it's cool, man. It's really good. I mean, it's very interactive and you make it look so easy, man. You know what I'm saying? So it's you got a lot of tips and tricks, man. And I love it, man. So it's really cool how everybody's able to kind of navigate and get in and out and chatting and putting things in and then bringing people in for questions. And I mean, it's huge, man. I mean, especially now with all of the meetings every day, all day. I mean, I think we talked about, you know, how many meetings everybody had. And I think I beat everybody. I was at 12 today. So it's one of those deals. So I love it, man. I love what you got going on, man, and how you got it out there, man.
I appreciate that. 12, huh? Dang, you've held up pretty well, man. I gotta say.
Yeah, I know, man. Hey, I had to pace myself, man. I got to the point where it's almost like being underwater. You got to slow your heartbeat down, man, and just relax. So
I guess I want to know what's actually holding you up right now. Anyway, hey, someone had a quick question. What camera are you using? It looks so clear. There you go. There's a product placement right there.
Yeah, I know, right? I know, right? It's an old, I think it's like 15, 16-year-old Canon that I'm using. I have so many meetings every day, and I want to start making sure that I'm looking the part. So I figured out how to, set up some old cameras using, high definition cameras. If you have a high def camera at home, you can use them. And just really just set your thing up and kind of set it up differently so you can change your cameras and angles and all those different things. So
That's cool. I mean, it seems like you're in the ESPN, whatever it is, studios right now. So I'm very impressed. Well, look, one other thing I want to mention, because I'm such a, I've got an audience here, so I might as well mention, this was the book, right? That you don't have one there, do you? I thought you were about to pull one out. Because I know I was saying
no.
anyway.
I got one downstairs. It's in the I got one though.
I got all excited, but it's a book that I wrote, really helping athletes transition from their sport to what's next. But really, it's a book front to back about all the job search techniques and networking and how to interview and how to meet people and what to say to them and so forth. So I stuck, because I decided I'm going to start doing this, I stuck a little image of my book on one of the things there. If you want to grab a copy, go for it. Also, what we're going to be announcing in the next few days is really all the stuff that we're going to be bringing to the Academy, so that everybody here, and I'm going to send an email out to you directly, can get a special deal on jumping into the Academy and being a part of not just all these events, but also we're going to have a special Slack channel to allow for basically 24/7 networking with the other members. So at any point in time, you can jump on and see who's on and start talking about whatever, networking stuff, business, personal, whatever it might be. And also look for plenty of upcoming events. Make sure you check your chat, the general chat over there on the right, over the rest of the night, and you're going to find a lot of great stuff in there. I encourage everybody to share information in there, share links. If you've got a book, if you've got something you recommend, if you just want to connect with people on LinkedIn, whatever it is, put that in there. And otherwise, Garrick, man, you were, as always, awesome. And guess what? I did remember this time to hit the record button.
My man, that's what I'm talking about.
And that's the story we could tell later. Anyway, thanks so much for being here, Garrick. And we're going to jump back to the tables real fast. Thanks again. All right, cheers.